Hi, everyone, I'm Sarah, and I'm 62 years old. I never thought I'd be sharing my story on YouTube, but here I am, sitting in my beautiful apartment in downtown Chicago, looking out at the city skyline, and I have to tell you about the most painful yet ultimately rewarding journey of my life. It's about my relationship with my son Michael, and how sometimes the people we love most can hurt us the deepest, but also how life has a way of coming full circle in the most unexpected ways. Before I continue, I've been noticing that YouTube has been automatically unsubscribing people from channels. So please, check if you're still subscribed, and if not, please subscribe again. It really helps me keep bringing these stories to you, so let me start from the beginning. Michael is my only child, and after his father passed away when he was just 12, it was just the two of us against the world. I worked 2 jobs to put him through private school, saved every penny for his college education, and sacrificed my own dreams so he could have every opportunity one never had. I was a single mother who cleaned offices at night and worked as a receptionist during the day, but I didn't care how tired I was or how little sleep I got. All that mattered was giving Michael the best life possible. I remember those early years so vividly. Michael was this bright, ambitious kid who excelled in everything he touched. He was valedictorian of his high school class, got a full scholarship to Northwestern University, and then went on to get his MBA from Wharton. I was so proud of him, you can't even imagine. Every sacrifice felt worth it when I saw him walking across that stage at graduation. After business school, Michael landed this incredible job at a prestigious consulting firm in Chicago. Within 5 years, he was making more money than I had ever dreamed of. He bought this stunning townhouse in Lincoln Park, one of the most expensive neighborhoods in the city. It was 3 stories, with this gorgeous brick facade and a rooftop deck that overlooked the lake. I was so proud of him, but I also started to notice that success was changing him. At first, it was subtle things. He'd make little comments about my apartment, which wasn't in the best neighborhood. He'd suggest I upgrade my wardrobe when we went to dinner at his fancy restaurants. He'd correct my grammar in front of his colleagues, which was humiliating, but I told myself he was just trying to help me fit in with his new crowd. Then came the girlfriend. Her name was Victoria, and she was everything I wasn't. She came from money, had gone to prep school, and worked in art curation at some high-end gallery. She was beautiful, sophisticated, and she looked at me like I was something she'd scrape off her shoe. But Michael was smitten, and I wanted him to be happy, so I tried my best to get along with her. The first real sign that something was seriously wrong came during Christmas dinner 2 years ago. I had spent the entire day cooking Michael's favorite meal, the same dishes I'd made for him every Christmas since he was a little boy. Pot roast, mashed potatoes, green bean casserole, and my famous apple pie. I set the table with my best china, which admittedly was nothing fancy, but it was what I had. Michael and Victoria arrived late, and I could immediately tell something was off. Victoria barely touched her food, and Michael seemed agitated. Finally, about halfway through dinner, Victoria excused herself to use the bathroom, and Michael exploded. "Mom, this is embarrassing," he said, gesturing around my small dining room. "The food, the decorations, this whole setup. It's like we're living in 1985. Victoria comes from a certain background, and this." He shook his head. "This isn't the image I want to project anymore." I felt like he had slapped me across the face. This was the same food I'd lovingly prepared for him for decades. These were the same traditions we'd built together after his father died. But I swallowed my hurt and asked him what he wanted me to do differently. "I don't know, Mom. Maybe just try to be more modern, more sophisticated. Victoria's parents are coming to visit next month, and I was thinking of having everyone over for dinner, but I can't do it here." No offense. No offense? I had given this man everything, and he was telling me that my home, my cooking, my entire way of life was an embarrassment to him. But I loved him, so I tried to understand. I bought new dishes, tried to change my cooking style, even got my hair done at an expensive salon. I was trying so hard to become the kind of mother he apparently wanted, but it was never enough. Every interaction became a critique. My clothes were too outdated. My car was too old. My apartment was too small and in the wrong neighborhood. I started to feel like I was walking on eggshells every time I was around him. The final straw came last spring, about 15 months ago. Michael had gotten engaged to Victoria, and they were planning this elaborate wedding. I was so excited to help plan it, to be involved in this milestone in my son's life. But when I asked about the wedding plans, Michael got this uncomfortable look on his face. "Mom, we need to talk," he said. We were sitting in my living room, and he was looking everywhere except at me. "Victoria and I have been discussing the wedding, and we're planning something pretty upscale. Black tie, very formal. Her family is flying in from all over the country, and there are going to be some pretty important people there." I nodded, waiting for him to continue, but already feeling a pit forming in my stomach. "The thing is, Mom, I need you to understand that this wedding is really important for my career and my future. Victoria's father has connections that could really help me advance, and first impressions matter a lot in situations like this." "Of course, honey. I understand. What do you need me to do?" Michael took a deep breath. "I need you to not come to the wedding." The words hung in the air like a physical presence. I stared at him, certain I had misheard. "What did you say?" "I know how it sounds, Mom, but please try to understand. You don't really fit in with Victoria's crowd, and I'm worried that having you there might complicate things. Maybe we could have a small celebration afterward, just the three of us, but the actual wedding needs to be just Victoria's family and our professional contacts." I felt like the world had tilted off its axis. My only child, the person I had sacrificed everything for, was telling me that I wasn't good enough to attend his wedding. That I was an embarrassment he needed to hide. "Michael," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, "I'm your mother. I raised you. I put you through school. I worked 2 jobs so you could have everything you wanted. And you're telling me I can't come to your wedding? Mom, please don't make this harder than it already is. This is about my future, about building the life I want. Sometimes we have to make difficult choices. What if I promised to buy a new dress? What if I got my hair done professionally? What if I took etiquette classes?" He shook his head. "It's not about that, Mom. It's about who you are. Where you come from. Victoria's family is going to expect a certain type of person as my mother, and you're just not that person." I stared at this man who looked like my son but was speaking like a stranger. "So what are you saying, Michael? That you're ashamed of me?" "I'm saying that I've worked very hard to build a certain image, and I can't have anything jeopardize that. Not even you." I stood up slowly, my legs shaking. "I think you should leave now." "Mom, please try to understand." "No, Michael. I understand perfectly. You want me to disappear from your life because I'm not good enough for your new family. Well, congratulations. You got your wish." He left that day, and I didn't hear from him for 3 weeks. 3 weeks of wondering if I had lost my son forever. 3 weeks of questioning everything I had done as a mother. 3 weeks of feeling like my entire life had been a waste, but then something interesting happened. I got a call from my lawyer, Mr. Peterson, who had handled my late husband's estate years ago. He told me that there had been some kind of mix-up with an old investment account that my husband had set up before he died. Apparently, there had been some clerical error, and the account had been growing all these years without my knowledge. "Mrs. Collins," he said, "I'm calling because we've located a significant asset that belongs to you. It's a portfolio that your husband established in 1995, and due to some paperwork complications, it was never properly transferred to you after his death. We're talking about a substantial sum of money." I nearly dropped the phone. "How substantial?" "Well, with compound interest and reinvestment over the past 28 years, the account is currently worth just over $2 million. I had to sit down. $2 million. I had been struggling to make ends meet on my Social Security. and small savings, and all this time, there had been this enormous sum of money just sitting there, growing, but the lawyer wasn't finished. There's more, Mrs. Collins. The account includes significant stock holdings in several companies, including one that your husband apparently invested in very early on. A little tech company that was just starting out in the 90s. I believe. You might have heard of it, it's called Apple. I started laughing and then I started crying. My husband, bless his soul, had always been interested in technology. He had bought a small amount of Apple stock in 1995, just 50 shares, because he thought their computers were innovative. Those 50 shares had split multiple times over the years and were now worth over $300,000 alone. Suddenly, I wasn't just a struggling single mother living paycheck to paycheck. I was a wealthy woman with options I had never imagined. The first thing I did was call Michael to share the news, thinking that maybe this would change things between us. Maybe if I had money, I would be good enough for his new life, but when I called him, he was cold and distant. That's great, Mom. I'm glad you won't have to worry about money anymore. But that doesn't change anything about the wedding. Victoria and I have already sent out the invitations. That's when I realized that this wasn't really about money or social status. This was about something deeper. My son had fundamentally changed his view of who I was and who he wanted to be. He had decided that I was a liability, and no amount of money was going to change that, so I made a decision that would change everything. If Michael wanted me to disappear, then I would disappear. But I would do it on my own terms. I started looking for a new place to live, somewhere that would give me the space and privacy I needed to figure out what I wanted to do with this unexpected windfall. I wanted to be close enough to keep an eye on Michael, because despite everything, I was still his mother and I still loved him, but far enough away that I wouldn't be an embarrassment to him. That's when I found the perfect place. It was a luxury apartment in a high-rise building right in the heart of downtown Chicago. Floor-to-ceiling windows, a chef's kitchen, a master suite with a walk-in closet bigger than my old bedroom. But the best part was the location. It was exactly 4 blocks from Michael's townhouse in Lincoln Park. I signed the lease immediately. Then I did something that felt both petty and deeply satisfying. I hired the most expensive interior designer in the city to furnish the place. I bought art, real art, not prints from Target. I had custom furniture made. I installed a wine cellar and stocked it with bottles that cost more than I used to make in a month, but here's the thing, I didn't tell Michael about any of this. As far as he knew, I was still living in my old apartment, still the same embarrassing mother he wanted to keep hidden. I moved into my new place 2 weeks before his wedding, and I watched from my living room window as the wedding party took photos in the park near his house. It was a beautiful day, and Victoria looked stunning in her designer dress. Michael looked handsome in his tuxedo, surrounded by all these well-dressed people who represented the life he wanted. And I watched it all from my window, 4 blocks away, invisible and forgotten, but I wasn't sitting there feeling sorry for myself. I was planning, you see, I had learned something important during all those years of raising Michael on my own. I had learned that sometimes the best way to show someone what they're missing is to give them exactly what they think they want. Michael wanted me to disappear? Fine. I would disappear. But I would do it in style. I spent the next few months quietly establishing myself in my new life. I joined charitable organizations, started volunteering at the art museum, took cooking classes at Le Cordon Bleu. I was becoming the kind of sophisticated woman that Michael apparently thought I could never be. But I was doing it for myself, not for him, and then something wonderful happened. I met James. James was a widower about my age who lived in the same building. He was a retired professor of art history who had also come into some money late in life through a successful investment his late wife had made. We met in the building's library, and we started talking about books, then art, then life in general. James was everything I hadn't known I was looking for. He was intelligent, cultured, and kind. He treated me like an equal, not like someone who needed to be fixed or improved. He was interested in my stories about raising Michael, about the challenges I had faced as a single mother, about the dreams I had put on hold. That we started spending time together, going to museums, trying new restaurants, traveling to places I had never been able to afford before. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was living for myself instead of just existing for someone else, and the best part? James thought I was wonderful exactly as I was. He didn't want me to change my accent or my mannerisms or my background. He was fascinated by my stories about working 2 jobs and putting myself through night school. He said I was the strongest, most resilient woman he had ever met. Meanwhile, Michael had no idea about any of this. He had gotten what he wanted, a mother who had disappeared from his life. He and Victoria were living their perfect, sophisticated life in Lincoln Park, and I was just a memory they didn't have to think about anymore. But life has a way of bringing things full circle, doesn't it? About 6 months after the wedding, I was walking through the lobby of my building when I heard a familiar voice. It was Michael, and he was talking to the building's concierge. "I'm looking for information about one of your residents," he was saying. An older woman, about 62, named Sarah Collins. "I think she might be living here." I ducked behind a pillar, my heart racing. Why was Michael looking for me? And how had he found out where I lived? The concierge, who knew me well by this point, was being appropriately discreet. "I'm sorry, sir, but I can't give out information about our residents. If you'd like to contact someone, you'll need to reach out to them directly." "But I'm her son," Michael said, and I could hear the frustration in his voice. "I've been trying to reach her for weeks. She's not answering her phone, and she's not at her old apartment. The landlord said she moved out months ago and didn't leave a forwarding address." "I understand your concern, sir, but our privacy policies are very strict. I'm sure you understand." I watched from behind the pillar as Michael stood there, looking lost and confused. This was the same man who had told me I wasn't good enough for his wedding, who had asked me to disappear from his life. Now he was frantically searching for me, and I had to admit, there was a small part of me that enjoyed watching him struggle, but I wasn't ready to reveal myself. Not yet. I needed to understand why he was looking for me, what he wanted. So I waited until he left, then I asked the concierge what Michael had said. He seemed very upset, "Mrs. Collins. He said he'd been trying to reach you for weeks, that something had happened and he needed to talk to you urgently. He left his phone number and asked me to give it to you if I saw you." I took the number, but I didn't call right away. Instead, I did something that might seem petty, but felt necessary at the time. I hired a private investigator to find out what was going on in Michael's life. I needed to know if this was genuine concern or if he needed something from me. What I learned was fascinating. Apparently, Michael's perfect life wasn't so perfect after all. Victoria had been having an affair with her boss at the art gallery, and she had asked Michael for a divorce. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was that she was taking him to the cleaners financially. You see, Michael had made some very poor financial decisions during their marriage. He had invested heavily in a startup company that Victoria's father had recommended, and the company had gone bankrupt. He had also signed a prenup that was heavily in Victoria's favor, because he had been so desperate to marry her that he would have signed anything. The divorce was going to cost him almost everything. The townhouse, his savings, even his car. Victoria was also asking for alimony, claiming that she had given up career opportunities to support his ambitions. It was ironic, really. The woman who had looked down on me for not being sophisticated enough was now revealed to be a gold digger who had been playing Michael from the beginning. But here's what really got my attention. According to the investigator, Michael had been telling people that he was hoping his mother would help him financially. He had been bragging about how his mother had recently come into some money, and how family was family, and how he was sure she would help him out during this difficult time. The audacity of it took my breath away. This was the same man who had told me I wasn't good enough to attend his wedding. Now he was counting on me to bail him out of his financial mess. The same mother he had been ashamed of was suddenly valuable to him because she had money. I realized that Michael had no idea how much money I actually had. He probably assumed I had inherited a modest sum, maybe enough to help with his legal fees or cover a few months of expenses. He had no idea that I was now wealthier than he had ever been, so I made a decision that would change everything. I decided to pay Michael a visit. but not as the embarrassing mother he had tried to hide. I was going to introduce him to the new Sarah Collins. I spent a week preparing for this encounter. I had my hair done at the most expensive salon in the city. I bought a designer outfit that cost more than I used to make in 3 months. I had my nails done, my makeup professionally applied. I looked like a completely different person, sophisticated, wealthy, confident. Then I did something that felt deliciously dramatic. I hired a car service to take me to Michael's townhouse. Not just any car service, I hired a Rolls-Royce with a chauffeur. I wanted to make an impression. When I arrived at Michael's house, I could see him through the window, sitting at his kitchen table with paperwork spread out in front of him. He looked exhausted, stressed, defeated. This was not the confident, successful man who had dismissed me from his life. This was someone who was struggling, who needed help. I rang the doorbell, and when Michael opened the door, the look on his face was priceless. He stared at me for a full 10 seconds, his mouth hanging open. "Mom," he finally said. "Is that really you?" "Hello, Michael," I said calmly. "I understand you've been looking for me." He glanced over my shoulder at the Rolls-Royce, then back at me, clearly trying to process what he was seeing. "Mom, you look different. Really different. How did you? I mean, where have you been?" "I've been living my life," I said. "The life you wanted me to disappear into." "May I come in?" Michael stepped aside, and I walked into the townhouse that I had admired so much when he first bought it. But now I could see the signs of his financial troubles. There were boxes packed and stacked in the living room. Some of the artwork was gone from the walls. The place had the hollow feeling of a home that was being dismantled. "Mom, I'm so sorry," Michael said, and I could hear the desperation in his voice. "I've been trying to reach you for weeks. I need to talk to you about something important." "I'm listening," I said, settling into one of his leather chairs like I owned the place. "I made a terrible mistake. The biggest mistake of my life. I should never have said those things to you about the wedding. I should never have asked you to stay away. You're my mother, and I love you, and I was wrong to treat you the way I did." I looked at him calmly. "What changed your mind, Michael?" He ran his hands through his hair, a gesture I remembered from when he was a little boy and had gotten in trouble. "Everything fell apart, Mom. Victoria left me. She's taking me for everything I have. The business deal that was supposed to make me rich turned out to be a scam. I'm going to lose the house, the car, everything." "I see. And you thought I might be able to help you." "I heard about your inheritance, Mom. I know it's not fair of me to ask after the way I treated you, but I am desperate. I'm your son, and I know you love me, and I was hoping maybe you could help me get back on my feet." I sat there for a long moment, studying this man who had caused me so much pain. He was still my son, still the little boy I had raised and sacrificed for. But he was also the man who had told me I wasn't good enough to attend his wedding, who had asked me to disappear from his life because I was an embarrassment. "How much do you need?" I asked, his face lit up with hope. "Well, the divorce is going to cost me about $200,000 in settlements and legal fees. And I'll need maybe another $100,000 to get a new place and start over." "I know it's a lot, Mom, but I promise I'll pay you back as soon as I get back on my feet." $300,000, I said, letting the number hang in the air. "That's quite a lot of money, Michael." "I know, Mom. I know it's a huge amount. But I also know that you came into some money recently, and I was hoping." He trailed off, looking embarrassed. "You were hoping that the mother you were ashamed of might bail you out of your financial troubles." "Mom, please. I know I hurt you. I know I was wrong. But I'm your son, and I need your help." I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the street where I had watched his wedding from my apartment window. "Michael, do you remember what you said to me about the wedding?" "Mom, I was wrong. I was stupid and selfish, and I'm sorry. You told me that I didn't fit in with Victoria's crowd. That I wasn't the kind of person who could be at your wedding. You told me that I was an embarrassment who might complicate your future. I was wrong, Mom. I was completely wrong. I turned back to face him. But here's what I don't understand, Michael. If I was such an embarrassment then, why aren't I an embarrassment now? What's changed? He looked confused. I don't understand. I'm the same person I was a year ago. Same background. Same accent, same stories about working 2 jobs and putting myself through night school. The only thing that's changed is that I have money now. So are you apologizing because you realized you were wrong about me, or because you need my money? Michael stared at me, and I could see the wheels turning in his head. He was realizing that I wasn't the same naive, desperate for approval mother he had dismissed. I was someone who had options, who had power, who wouldn't be so easily manipulated. Mom, I love you. I've always loved you. I just got caught up in trying to impress the wrong people, and I lost sight of what was important. That's a lovely sentiment, Michael. But I need you to understand something. I'm not the same person I was a year ago. Not because I have money now, but because I've learned something important about myself. I've learned that I don't need anyone's approval to be valuable. Not even yours. I walked over to where he was sitting and looked down at him. I've spent the last year building a new life for myself. I have a beautiful apartment, wonderful friends, and someone special in my life who appreciates me for who I am, not for what I can do for him. I've traveled to places I never thought I'd see, learned things I never thought I'd learn. I've become the woman I always had the potential to be, but never had the confidence to become. Mom, that's wonderful. I'm happy for you. But does that mean you won't help me? I smiled, and it wasn't a particularly warm smile. Oh, Michael, I'm going to help you. But not in the way you think. I reached into my purse and pulled out a check. But instead of handing it to him, I tore it up into small pieces and let them flutter to the floor. That was a check for $300,000, I said calmly. The exact amount you said you needed. Michael's face went white. Mom, what are you doing? I'm teaching you a lesson that I should have taught you a long time ago. You can't treat people like disposable objects and then expect them to be there when you need them. You can't be ashamed of someone when they're struggling and then suddenly value them when they have something you want. But Mom, I'm your son. I'm the only family you have. That's where you're wrong, Michael. You were my family when you loved me and respected me. When you asked me to disappear from your life, you made it clear that I wasn't really your family anymore. I was just an inconvenience you wanted to get rid of. I walked toward the door, then turned back to face him. But here's the thing, Michael. I'm not a vindictive person. I'm still your mother, and I still love you. So I'm going to make you an offer. What kind of offer? I'm going to help you, but not with money. I'm going to help you learn how to take care of yourself, how to rebuild your life through your own efforts, how to become the kind of person who doesn't need to be ashamed of where he comes from. I don't understand. I'm going to give you a job, Michael. A real job, where you'll work for everything you get. I've started a consulting company, and I need someone with your skills and education to help me run it. The pay is fair, but not extravagant. You'll have to work your way up, prove yourself, earn respect instead of demanding it. Michael looked stunned. You started a consulting company? I told you, Michael. I'm not the same person I was a year ago. I've discovered that I have talents and abilities that I never had the chance to develop when I was struggling just to survive. I've been working with other women my age who want to start their own businesses, who want to prove that it's never too late to reinvent yourself. But Mom, I need money now. I need to pay the lawyers, find a new place to live. Then you'll have to figure that out yourself. Take out a loan, sell some of your things, ask Victoria's family for help. Do what millions of other people do when they face financial difficulties. Work for it. I headed for the door again, but Michael called after me. Mom, wait. What if I said yes? What if I took the job? I stopped and turned around. Then you'd be making the first smart decision you've made in years. But understand this, Michael. If you come to work for me, you'll be treated like any other employee. You won't get special treatment because you're my son. You'll have to earn your place, prove your worth, and show me that you've learned something from this experience. And if I do that, if I prove myself, then maybe, eventually, we can rebuild our relationship. But it will be a relationship between equals, not between a desperate mother and her ungrateful son. I won't be the woman who sacrifices everything for a child who doesn't appreciate it. I'll be a successful businesswoman who happens to be your mother, if you can learn to treat me with respect. Michael sat there for a long time, staring at the torn pieces of the check on his floor. Finally, he looked up at me with something I hadn't seen in his eyes for years, genuine respect. Mom. I don't know what to say. I've been such an ass. I've been so focused on trying to become someone I thought I should be that I forgot who I really am. I forgot who raised me, who taught me right from wrong, who showed me what real strength looks like. I'm not looking for an apology, Michael. I'm looking for change. Real change. What would I be doing at your company? We help women over 50 start their own businesses. We provide consulting services, financial planning, marketing support, all the things that women our age need to become entrepreneurs. It's challenging work, but it's also incredibly rewarding. And you think I could contribute to that? I think you have skills that could be valuable. But more importantly, I think you need to understand what it means to build something from the ground up, to work with people who have faced real challenges. To be part of something that makes a difference in people's lives. Michael nodded slowly. When would I start? Monday morning. 9 o'clock sharp. The office is downtown, and the dress code is business casual, not designer suits. You'll be working with people from all different backgrounds, and you'll be expected to treat everyone with respect, regardless of their education or social status. Okay. I'll be there. I walked to the door, then turned back one more time. Michael, I want you to understand something. I'm not doing this because I feel sorry for you. I'm doing this because I believe that somewhere inside the man who disappointed me so deeply, there's still the boy I raised to be better than this. But you're going to have to prove it to me, and more importantly, you're going to have to prove it to yourself. As I walked out to my waiting car, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, a sense of my own power. I wasn't the desperate, approval-seeking mother anymore. I was a woman who had options, who had boundaries, who wouldn't be taken advantage of or dismissed. The next few months were interesting, to say the least. Michael showed up to work on Monday morning, looking humbled and uncertain. I introduced him to the team as my son, but made it clear that he would be treated like any other new employee. He started at the bottom, doing research and data entry, learning the business from the ground up. At first, I could see him struggling with the adjustment. He was used to being the important one, the one with the corner office and the expense account. Now he was making copies and answering phones, working alongside women who had been waitresses, factory workers, and retail clerks before starting their own businesses. But slowly, something began to change. Michael started listening to their stories, really listening. He heard about women who had raised families on minimum wage, who had gone back to school in their 50s, who had overcome incredible obstacles to achieve their dreams. He began to understand that success wasn't about where you came from or how much money you had. It was about resilience, determination, and the willingness to work for what you wanted. One day, about 3 months after he started, Michael came to my office to talk. He looked different, less polished, but more genuine. Mom, I wanted to thank you, he said. For what? For not giving me the money. For making me work for this. I've learned more about myself in the past 3 months than I learned in the previous 3 years. What have you learned? I've learned that I was chasing the wrong things. I thought success meant impressing people who didn't really care about me. I thought being sophisticated meant looking down on people who had less than me. I thought being a man meant being ashamed of the woman who raised me. He paused, and I could see tears in his eyes. I've learned that the most successful people I know aren't the ones with the most money or the fanciest degrees. They're the ones who know who they are, who treat people with respect, who aren't afraid to work hard for what they want. And what do you want, Michael? I want to be someone you can be proud of. Not because of what I have or who I know, but because of who I am. I want to be the kind of man who deserves to have you as his mother. I looked at this man who had hurt me so deeply, who had asked me to disappear from his life, and I saw something I hadn't seen in years: genuine humility and growth. Michael, I need you to understand something. I'm proud of you for taking this job, for working hard, for learning to treat people with respect. But I was always proud of you. Even when you hurt me, even when you disappointed me, you were still my son, and I was still proud of the person I knew you could be. I don't deserve that, Mom. I don't deserve your forgiveness or your pride. That's not your decision to make, Michael. That's mine. And I choose to forgive you, not because you've earned it, but because I love you. But understand this: forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean going back to the way things were. It means moving forward with a better understanding of who we are to each other. Over the next few months, Michael continued to prove himself at work. He became one of our most valuable employees, not because he was my son, but because he had learned to work with people instead of looking down on them. He developed a particular talent for working with women who had been overlooked or dismissed by other business advisors. He understood what it felt like to be humbled, to have to start over, to prove yourself from the ground up. But the real change came when Michael met someone new. Her name was Lisa, and she was one of our clients. She was a divorced mother of two who had started her own catering business after her husband left her for a younger woman. She was smart, hardworking, and absolutely unimpressed by fancy degrees or expensive clothes. I watched from a distance as Michael fell for her, and I could see that this was different from his relationship.